That doesn't work.
I can.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, ready to go.
This is the ordinary council meeting of Organ Spring Bay Council, Tuesday, 22nd of March, commencing at 2 p.m. The Glamorgan Spring Bay Council acknowledges the traditional owners of our region and recognises their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. Well, as I understand it, every councillor is present and in attendance. Are there any late reports?
No late reports.
Declaration of interest or conflict. Will elected members please indicate whether they have any interest personally or via a close associate as defined in section 49 of the Local Government Act 1993, or any conflict as described in the Council's Code of Conduct for Councillors in any item included in the agenda. As there are none acknowledged, confirmation of the minutes meeting held 22nd of February. Is there a motion?
I'll move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on the 22nd of February 2022 at 2 p.m. be confirmed as a true and correct record.
Is there a seconder?
Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Councillor Arnold. Any discussion? I put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 To the contrary, I declare the motion carried unanimously. Item 2.2 of the agenda, date and purpose of workshops held. The first is the Tuesday, 22nd of February 2020. Is there a recommendation?
Councillor Browning, I move that council notes the information.
And Councillor Simon, do I see you seconding that? Thank you very much. Any discussion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, if I may. Councillor Wood?
Yes, please.
Yes, as an apology, I was noted, but can I please also have it noted that it was due to work commitments?
Yes, I'd ask that that be noted in accord with Deputy Mayor Wood's request.
Thank you.
All those in favour, please say aye.
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 To the contrary, carried unanimously. Next workshop, Tuesday, 8th of March. Can I have a motion?
Councillor Arnold, I'll move that council notes the information.
Thank you very much, Councillor Arnold.
Grant Robinson.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Any discussion? I put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no. I declare
Aye.
the motion carried unanimously. Next item is public question time. There appear to be no questions on notice, and I don't think there are any questions without notice. Am I correct, General Manager?
No, Mr. Mayor, there are two questions without notice.
Yes, please. Please let us have them.
Okay, so the first question is from Dr. Robin Moore. Thank you for organising public consultation for the Swansea Main Street paving project. I noticed that the consultation will be held on the street. I realise the importance of meeting on site to discuss features of the project, but wanted to ask if the consultation will adjourn to the nearby Swansea Town Hall or an alternative meeting venue, which is more amenable to discussing details of the project and allowing participants to wait in comfort to have their views recorded. Response to the question: the component of the consultation has built on the previous property-to-property engagement along the route of the works. So that's with directly impacted people. Engagement through representation at the Swansea Chamber of Commerce meeting, coverage in C-Speak, Council's community publication, many one-on-one telephone conversations and follow-ups with the project manager and others and interested parties and directly impacted parties. Community Connect sessions, 2 of which have been held in Swansea. The street side consultation location and timeframe is designed to facilitate opportunity for those who have become aware and avail themselves of the opportunity, as much as for those who have only become aware in passing and take time to make comment. Visibility is considered important. The public will have the opportunity to make comment through survey forms on site as a means to ensure comments are recorded. The proposed upgrade is important to the community, yet comprises modest improvement to and renewal of existing functionality and form within a funding budget. Second question is from Rosemary Wood. Today, on the 23rd of March, I have been sent a link to the draft Orford Foreshore Master Plan prepared by the Inspiring Place team. I agree that leases need to be finalised and infrastructure formalised in line with Crown Land, Parks and Wildlife Services, Property and Conservation Acts. The protection of our natural and diverse environment, particularly the bird habitat, has always been a high priority for residents and visitors to the Prosser Foreshore. To this end, I would ask that the lagoon backwater be restored to a healthy habitat for both resident and migratory shorebirds and other listed vulnerable species, as mentioned in the report. At present, the lagoon is an anoxic, degraded water body that does not provide the rich foraging habitat that a flushing dynamic lagoon needs, and substantially reduces the functionality of the RBA. My question: is it possible to open a new, relatively deep channel, either at the north or south end of the lagoon, that would allow full tidal and environmental flows to perform the cleansing and revitalising role required to restore the lagoon to a valuable foraging asset for the RBA and for the other vulnerable species, as opposed to the virtually stagnant and steadily degrading system that has been the result of the channelization and stabilization of the Prosser River mouth? End of question. The response: if Council votes to proceed for today's item on the Orford Foreshore Master Plan, you will have the opportunity to provide feedback as part of the consultation. It would be recommended that you provide this feedback as part of this process. Any works in the watercourse would require extensive consideration and approvals from the relevant authorities. This is not something that the current draft master plan recommends or that Council is considering. Those are the two questions.
Thank you, General Manager. I was unaware that we had any lease over any part of the lagoon and water area in that part of the municipality. Next item is for Planning Authority. There are no reports, so we go on to item 5, Financial Report. There has been a detailed attachment, a good report. Can I have a motion, please?
Councillor Arnold, I'll move that Council receives and note the financial reports as attached to this report for the period ended 28th of February 2022.
Thank you, Councillor Arnold. Did I see Councillor Churchill second? Thank you, Councillor Churchill. Councillor Arnold, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. As you identified, the reports are very well done in the attachments to our agenda.
If I may, I just have a comment or a question to ask. It's on the, let's see, what's the title? It's on the Capital Works detail, page 2. Just the columns are designated at the top. The second and third from the left are both designated 2021-22 budget. I'm assuming that the one on the left is in fact the 2021-22 adjusted budget. If we could just have that corrected for the minutes if I'm right, or advise me if I'm wrong.
Perhaps
I'm advised,
Director of Corporate.
through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm advised by the Director of Corporate that that is correct. That Councillor Churchill's assumption is correct.
Thank you. Just if that can be corrected for a minute.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to make a comment about the report? Well, I note that the financial reports do show that we have a substantial surplus cash flow from operating activities at this time of the unlike the cash flow situation in the previous period, and that our current assets exceed by a considerable amount our current liabilities, which means that if all the debts were called in, we could pay them. And I think that's a very good situation for council now to be in. And thank you for council officers for doing a very good job. Does anyone else wish to say anything?
Yes, Mayor. If I
put the motion. I'm sorry, please. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Sorry. Can I just ask a question through you to the General Manager, page 5 of the report, under Parks, Reserves, Walking Tracks, Cemeteries, Buckland Walk Rehabilitation. When is that to be started?
I may, Deputy Mayor, I may refer to the Director of Works and Infrastructure.
Thank you.
Yes. We anticipate getting a start on that in April and completing it soon thereafter.
Thank you.
Any other queries or questions or comments? Well, I put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Against? Carried unanimously. The next item is item 6, section 6 on the agenda, section 24 committees on page 13. I note there's a report from Coles Bay Community Hall Committee. Is there a motion? Councillor Churchill.
I move that the minutes of the Coles Bay Hall Committee meeting held on 21st of February 2022 be received and noted.
Is there a seconder?
Councillor Browning.
Councillor Browning, thank you. Is there any discussion? There being no discussion, I put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Please say aye. The contrary? I declare the motion carried unanimously. Next item is 7 on the agenda, information reports. There's a report from Director Works, quite an extensive one, Mr. Porch. Can I have a motion? Do I see someone moving a motion?
Councillor Bruni, I'll move that council notes the information.
Thank you very much. Is there a seconder? Councillor Simons. Is there any discussion on the matter?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, if I can. Councillor Bruni.
Yes.
I've just noted
Yes,
on
please,
page 19 of the agenda, the first graph or table is is titled Work Request Completion and Source. I was struck by the way that it's a bell curve, and from October, November, we have a consistent fall of what you would call received works requests. The completed works requests closely now start to match the received, which is very encouraging. And if that trend keeps going, it looks as though we'll have a rather smooth run until, I suppose, the next stormwater event, because that seems to be the one that causes most trouble. But it's just reassuring to see that things like work requests and, you know, complaints and things like that, it's nice to know that they decrease at some time, and probably due to the diligent work of the staff. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bruni. I concur with your views. Councillor Churchill.
Yes, if I may, through you, Mayor, if I could ask Mr. Porch, probably would be the relevant one. The Black Summer bushfires grant of 1.53 million. The first dot point there under the allocation of that is for the establishment of water tanks for dedication to ground-based firefighting units. Council to work with local landowners and TasFire to establish water tanks on private land to be geolocated as fill points for land-based firefighting units. I guess there's a couple of questions there. I'd just like to know how much, or is there a figure on that that amount to be allocated from the 1.53 yet? That would be my first question.
Certainly, yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, the value for that component of the works is $225,000.
Right, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Porch.
Yeah, thanks.
Councillor Churchill, second question.
Yeah, just following on from that, I just, and I'm not trying to be negative about this at all, but I just wonder if this allocation of money is actually as significant as we might see it superficially, because my immediate response to it was, yeah, that's a great idea. However, when I have a look in an area like we live in here and where we have our fair share of fires, nearly all of the property owners already have their own fire tanks installed. And in brief communication with some of the TFS volunteers, it would seem that they rarely use it to take water from those points anyway. There are 3 large tanks that are more accessible on the roads along here for filling, and I would have thought at least before those tank installations were to occur, that perhaps an audit could be conducted to see how many are already here. And on top of that, there is also for new houses, well, it's not that new, at least the previous 10 years and presumably from here on, as part of the building process, all residents in this area have to have a 10,000 litre tank of their own anyway. I guess the point I'm getting to is perhaps this money should be examined a little bit more closely, and perhaps there could be better uses for some of that money, which might be worth for the further discussion, I think. But I'd just like to see a little bit of auditing going into that, or some justification for that amount of money. Thank you.
Councillor Churchill, what step do you envisage that Director Mr. Peter Porch should take if he adopts the line that you're leading to in your second question? How do you think it should be?
Well, I think there's a lot of community possibilities and options that could be looked at, which I'd certainly don't think this is the right forum probably to look at that, because it's just not about my thoughts. But I think there are others, perhaps in TFS, who might be interested in that discussion. The other thing is that allocation of money is for obviously bigger areas than just Dolphin Sands. So, yeah, I just would like to see a little bit more information, a bit more discussion, and perhaps at least an audit of existing tanks. I mean, and I guess the other part of it is that I have been very close to several fires over the last few years, and not once, even though I've offered very openly, and the TFS know the water is there, I've offered the tankers to come and fill on my property rather than going further to other tanks, and not once has it been used. So I question how it's used practically over and above what already exists. I guess that's really the question.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to follow on from what Councillor Churchill's raised, and that is in terms of an audit for water tanks, because a lot of the water tanks that are installed these days are moulded tanks. Well, for want of a better term, they're like hard plastic type tanks. I'd just be interested to know what the data is around their suitability in fire-prone areas, because I understand that there has been a significant number of tanks melted, if you like, in large fires elsewhere. So if this process is going to happen, then part of that audit needs to be, in my view, an analysis of the suitability of the water tanks, that we currently have or might have in the future for the water. Whether TFS uses the water or not, it has to be there, and if it's in moulded tanks, they may not be there in a severe fire. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Arnold. Very good point raised. Anyone else wish to say anything? Yes, Deputy Mayor Woods.
Thank you, Mayor Young. I just want to direct a question and an observation with regards to page 18, third dot point under parks, playgrounds and reserves. The QR code check-in signs for all playgrounds, including exercise equipment, removed and stored. At what cost did this exercise cost councils, like having to have these QR codes in playgrounds and skate parks? I know we had trouble with the skate bowl at Triabunna where somebody had just pulled it out of the ground and stuck it in the bin. So was it an expensive cost to council?
Through you,
General
Mr. Mayor,
Manager.
take that question on notice and come back to council with the costs for the program.
Thank you. And
Thank you, Mr. Ford.
It's initiation of state government, wasn't it? Like we had to do it. Is that correct? That
is correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we got nothing for it.
Only peace of mind.
Thank you.
Mayor, could I ask?
You want to say something? No, apparently not. Councillor Arnold.
No, could I just ask Mr. Porch in his taking that Deputy Mayor's question on notice, if he could investigate the possibility of council putting a claim. The state government's just released a new grant round for businesses that have been impacted. So council is a business. If we're impacted to any significant thing, would we be eligible to claim the cost of those signs under that current grant process that's happening in government? So it's just a question. Happy to have it taken as on notice as part of the Deputy Mayor's question.
Thank you very much, Councillor Arnold. That's a very good point. Anyone else? Well, I put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Contrary, no. I declare the motion carried unanimously. Next item is 7.2, Manager Buildings and Marine Infrastructure report from Mr. Adrian O'Leary. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Mayor Deputy Mayor Woods.
Thank
I'll
you.
move that council notes the information.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Yes, I'll
Thank you,
second that.
Councillor Churchill. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Robinson. I'll give
That's
you the right
okay.
to second that because we can't see you, and
No, but
I assume
I can
those
see
who know.
you.
Oh, thank you. Well, at least that's the best part of the picture, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Is there any comment or question about this report?
Yes,
well,
Mayor. Could I,
Yes.
Mayor? Could I ask a question,
Yes.
please?
Yes, please.
Through you to the general manager. I'm not sure if Mr. O'Leary is present. If so, it could be a question to him. I've noticed under boat ramps and jetties, the elephant in the room is not mentioned, and I would appreciate if there would be an update in future council meetings of the situation with the Swansea boat ramp. I understand there may be nothing happening there, but we need to know progressively so that the public is aware of just what is eventuating, if anything, even if it is nothing. I'd appreciate that if that could be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Breening. Does anyone else have a question or comment?
Through you, Mr. Mayor,
Well,
can I just
yes,
just make a
please,
comment?
General
So
Manager.
certainly that can be done, Councillor Breeny. And as you say, and not much is progressing on that front at the moment. Can I just confirm this motion was moved by Deputy Mayor Woods and seconded by Councillor Churchill or Robinson?
Churchill.
Well, it was Councillor Robinson. Councillor Churchill raised his hand, but so I'm sure did Councillor Robinson. And seeing he's not seen, I accepted his seconding of the motion.
Okay,
I'm sure
Robinson.
Councillor Churchill won't mind.
Thank you.
I put my hand up before Councillor Church.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Robinson.
It's the apple.
Now, boys.
Now, I've got a comment to make about the Swansea boat ramp. We didn't design it. We didn't build it. We don't own it. We don't have a lease over it. It was designed and built by Marine and Safety Tasmania. It's a very difficult matter. I understand there's much concern about its inability to be used properly with safety. I can't see a solution to the problem. Councillor Breeny, I agree with your comment, but it is not council's problem. I just want to make one other comment about the Tribunal Marina. We've had to do some capital works there that we didn't expect to have to do. Interest rates are likely to rise, and we have borrowed money for the building of the marina. I understand, some extra maintenance work that wasn't expected that has to be done. I don't know whether that arose out of a boat collision or not, but I note that we are viewing the question of the marina charges and possibly the rates charged by other places that provide marina berths. Just a comment. I put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? I declare the motion carried unanimously. Now, item 8 is out of the agenda. It has been withdrawn. That brings us on to item 8.2, Community Small Grants Application, 10 Lives Cats Centre. Can I have a motion? Councillor Churchill.
I move that council approve the application for community small grant funding of $1,000 to 10 Lives Cat Centre for the delivery of the EduCat program to the schools in Orford, Triabunna and Swansea.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second Councillor Woods.
Well, if there's no second, thank you, Deputy Mayor Woods. Do you wish to speak to the motion, either the mover or seconder?
Yes, I'll speak to the motion, if I may, Mayor.
Yes, please.
I think that this organisation actually is probably very much underestimated for what its contribution to the community is. Cats are always a divisive argument in our community. People tend to either like them or the opposite. And there is a lot of issues around cat management in our community, and I think things are starting to improve in that direction. This organisation helps to manage a lot of the cat issues we have. I think it's around 34% of Tasmanians have a close association with a cat. However, the bigger picture is, and I noted here in the officer's report that under the risk considerations, I talk about cat welfare and responsible cat ownership as being part of the reason for doing this. But it's far greater than that. I don't know whether the community is aware of the huge impact that cats can have negatively on the community as well as positively, but there's a lot of negative impacts, and some of those are in fact human health, some of them are livestock health, some of them are our native wild animal health, and to me, any step in the direction of helping to manage cats and to educate the community. And I know this education is for young children, we've got to start somewhere, but if we can educate them to understand the role of cats in our community and how important they are to those people who own them, especially to people who might not be able to have a larger pet or have no other companion that they live with. They have a right to have the animal. The management of that animal is the problem. And we've got to educate our community, and I think school children are a really good entry point to get that education happening in the community. So I'd just like to give the reasons for supporting that motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Churchill. Will the seconder wish to speak or not?
Yes, Mayor, I'd
Yes,
like
please,
to
Deputy Mayor Wood.
I'd just like to concur with Councillor Churchill on that one. As you're all aware, I have a cat, but my biggest issue with cats is the feral population, and I don't see that that's being looked at too much. But anyway, I will support this today. It's a good initiative, and we've got to start somewhere.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion or against the motion? Well, once again, I have a comment. A few weeks ago, I was left with a tiny feral kitten on my front patio, the mother having completely disappeared. I fed it and looked after it for I think it would have been a couple of weeks, and then let's call him a dog catcher gentleman working for the council, very kindly took it off my hands, and it's now got a nice home and it's a lovely pet. So cats can descend upon you even if you don't like them, and I was sad to see it go. I put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Against? Declare it carried unanimously. The next item is 8.3, request for support of Festival of Voices. Can I have a motion?
Yes, I'll propose a motion, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson.
That council provides bins for the event and an increase in servicing of public amenities in the area over the festival period. And 2, that council provides a grant of $1,000 from the event budget to the festival's organising body towards festival expenses.
Is there a seconder?
Can I please ask that Councillor Robinson repeat that, because he froze on me.
Oh, okay.
Councillor Robinson, please.
Okay.
I think Councillor Robinson, sorry, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Robinson, are you aware of the recommended support amount?
Yes, $1,000. Oh, the recommended's 5,000. Yes,
No,
that's right.
5,000.
Yeah. Yes, but the recommendation's 1,000.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, so I'll repeat that motion that council provides bins for the event and an increase in servicing of public amenities in the area over the festival period, and that council provides a grant of $1,000 from the event budget to the festival's organising body towards festival expenses.
Is there a seconder for the motion?
Yes,
Councillor Bruni seconds.
All right, Councillor Bruni. Councillor Robinson, would you please speak to the motion?
Yes, I can speak to the motion. I'm aware that the festival committee have requested $5,000, but I just think that this event, like a lot of the events that we have in our area, you know, the triathlon and those sorts of things and the Coles Bay event, do request a lot more money than perhaps we should be providing. We provide a lot of in-kind support for this one. I went last year and it was great to see all the council, so many council staff there. So the actual in-kind support that council provides is quite significant. And I think the Festival of Voices, they get funding from all over the place. I think a grant of $1,000 is sufficient from our council, given the in-kind support that we provide. I'm not taking away from the event. I go every year I'm around and it's a great event and it was really good last year, but I think it's the sort of event that perhaps we now need to let it stand on its own 2 feet a little bit.
Thank you. Councillor Bruni, do you wish to say anything?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Is there any discussion on the motion, either for or against? Yes, Councillor Churchill.
Yeah, if I could just make some comments on it. I totally get what Councillor Robinson is saying here. I totally get that. But I guess this event has been strongly supported by council now for a number of years, and since its inception, it's a little bit different in the way it's presented to the community. And to me, it's a very inclusive event. It is affordable to most members of our community. A lot of the other events that we are asked to support are quite the opposite. I read them as being quite exclusive, in that the ticketing amounts are considerably higher than this one. I think, if I stand corrected, I can't remember from reading this and I just can't find it immediately, but I think the entry fee is something like $35 to this event. And if that's correct, then I think that it's the sort of event, it's an uplifting event, and I would like to see us perhaps support it at least through these periods of, I guess, social depression in many ways, where we need something uplifting in our community. And for those who can support it and can afford to attend it, I think that I would like to, I would like to put an amendment to the motion and raise that figure to $5,000 if that is approved.
Is there a seconder to that amendment motion?
I'll second it.
That Councillor Arnold?
Excuse me, could I make a comment, please? I'd like to also make a comment. I'd like to make a comment.
Please do, Councillor Bruni.
My seconding of Councillor Robinson's motion was in error. I was reading page 37 of the agenda, which is the following item. And the wording of it was exactly the same as what Councillor Robinson read. And I mistakenly thought that I was supporting the recommendation of the reporting officer. I was not aware in my seconding of the motion that item 8.3, I believe that's what we are voting on at the moment. Is that correct, Mayor?
Yes, that's correct.
I
Councillor
wasn't aware that item 8.3 made a totally different recommendation, and I was surprised that the amount was amended to 1,000 because I was inclined, prior to my making a comment, I was inclined to support the original recommendation for item 8.3 of the $5,000 cash contribution due to the type of function
Well,
that
Councillor
the
Brennan,
Festival of Voices is, and I would wonder whether I could rescind my my
Councillor
seconding.
Brennan, that's caused me some perplexity, but I think as you have seconded the motion, even though in error, your seconding is going to stand. Now, Councillor Robinson, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just as a final point, now the motion's been put, we're going to have to vote on it, but I have put the motion in error, as Councillor Breeny has said, so apologies for that. I did flick down the page a bit too far. I still feel as though $5,000 is too much, but I've obviously put the motion wrongly, and I guess we'll have to vote on it.
Well, what we'll vote on first is the amendment to the motion. The amendment to the motion is, I'm sorry, please proceed. Someone said something.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that's what I was just going to ask.
Yes,
Could we have the amendment clarified, please? Councillor Churchill's amendment. I know Councillor Churchill said to increase it to $5,000, but is that $5,000 just a change in the actual motion that Councillor Robertson put? Or
so through you, Mr. Mayor, the motion that Councillor Robinson put, that was an amended motion that needs to be reflected here, is a motion that council needs to vote on first and then consider what it needs to do after that. So that amended motion from Councillor Robinson was
No, I'm sorry, General Manager. The amended motion was from Councillor Churchill and I seconded it, but I'm just trying to determine what the actual wording was of Councillor Churchill's amendment before we vote.
Well, I thought the wording was exactly the same.
He didn't actually specify anything other than the amount should be $5,000. That's my paraphrase.
So the wording was exactly the same, I understand, as what you can see. Hopefully you can see on the screen now.
No, we can't.
Okay.
No, we can't. It's a very nice, scary thing. Perhaps it could be read out to us.
Yeah, read it. This is why I asked the question, Councillor Robinson.
Yeah.
Are you sure you're reading the right recommendation?
My apologies.
Because it was $5,000.
Yeah, I went down, flicked down too far.
Okay, so through you, Mayor, I can read out
Please read it out.
what the original motion is and then what the amended motion is. So the original motion was
what the amended motion is.
Okay, so the amended motion...
that the original motion be amended to read, and please read on.
Okay, that the council provide bins for the event and an increase in servicing of public amenities in the area over the festival period. That council provides a grant of $5,000 from the event budget to the festival's organising body towards festival expenses.
Well, that's the amended motion. We've had some discussion about it. I propose to put the motion. Well, I'd say, Councillor Arnold, you please say something.
Yes, all I'm suggesting, Mayor, is that I'm happy to continue to, if that's the amended motion that Councillor Churchill moved, and he's happy with that amendment, I'm happy to remain as the seconder. That amendment now needs to be put, and if that becomes the motion, then it's put again as the motion, as you know.
Correct. Look, Councillor Greenie, you may speak again. You've had 2 goes, but please go again.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a question through you to the General Manager. Given that there's specific comment in relation to the services that Council is going to provide and therefore not provide, in other words, I just want to get the wording right. We're going to provide bins for the event and an increase in servicing of public amenities in the area over the festival period. Does that satisfy the type of assistance that Council is going to give to the Festival of Voices event?
Deputy Mayor Woods.
Well, through you,
Please,
Mr. Mayor, can I
Deputy
just
Mayor
answer the Councillor
Yes, please.
Grenie's question?
General Manager.
The reason for the original recommendation, so the recommendation that appears in your agenda, the reason for that recommendation, which clearly says the 5,000 cash contribution and leaves provide in-kind assistance as resources permit, was deliberate.
Yes.
The second half of that recommendation, it was deliberate because last year, as you're probably aware, people in this very room and others outside of this room provided a significant amount of in-kind support to the Festival of Voices event. And it's very hard to quantify what that support is. And it's very pleasing to see people providing that in-kind support and not be reimbursed for it either. It's not an expectation of Council, not an expectation of mine, and shouldn't be, but it was significant. The reason that was worded the way it was is because we can quantify the 5,000, the amount of money is easily to quantify, and it's handed over to the event organisers and they do with it what they want, so to speak. The in-kind support is not easily quantifiable, and I'd just like to get a bit more control and management over that and reduce the expectations that we're starting to build perhaps with event organisers and this event organiser in particular, expectations that there will be in-kind support, it'll be ongoing, and it seems to be ever increasing each year. So it was really just to bring that under control, hence that original recommendation. We got flexibility around what in-kind support we provide, and Council, if Council agrees, we provide the $5,000. Simple as that.
Thank you, General Manager. Deputy Mayor Woods.
Can I please make a suggestion in regards to what's just taken place mistakenly by Councillor?
Please, Deputy Mayor Woods, make the suggestion.
Is that we put the motion that Councillor Robinson first put? No? We've got to go with an amended first.
Correct.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Right.
That's correct in that. Now, I propose to put the amendment. It's the amendment to amend the original motion. And yes, Councillor Wood.
So that being the case, would it be best, in my suggestion to the mover and the seconder of the amendment, is that it reads quite simply the officer's recommendation without adding the bin thing as well, so that the General Manager and the Council can still have control over how much they have with regard, or how much in-kind assistance as resources permit. So would it be best to have, my suggestion, and I'm quite happy, is that the actual...
Councillor Arnold, do you have a view on that?
Deputy Mayor, can I just, through you, Mr. Mayor, can I just suggest that We put the motion in relation to the amendment. Hypothetically, that's lost. The motion that Councillor Robinson moved, that he has now acknowledged is incorrect, is put. Hypothetically, that's lost. We get a new motion. We get a new motion on the table that is more in accordance to what the General Manager has said.
Exactly.
Thanks for the
That
clarification.
sounds good.
Yes.
All right, I agree with that.
That clarifies the matter, Mr. Mayor.
All right, well, thank you very much. I'm not quite sure that that's technically correct, but it does the job.
Oh, it is. It's really not much different to someone putting a foreshadowed motion, Mayor, but that might confuse the whole issue again. So I think.
Yeah, well, look, I accept the general feeling. I put the amendment, the motion to amend the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no.
No.
I declare the motion is lost unanimously. I'm not sure that the
Mr. Mayor,
voted for it, but against it, but nevertheless. Now
Mr.
I
Mayor,
put the.
thank you.
Yes.
Sorry, the amendment is lost.
Yes, that's correct. Now I put the original motion of Councillor Robinson. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no.
No.
I declare that the motion is lost.
Mr. Mayor,
Now,
and
I have a motion?
Yes, then I'll move that council approve. I'll move that Councillor Arnold, that council approve the application for event assistance of $5,000 cash contribution and provide in-kind assistance as resources permit.
And Councillor Robinson to second.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Now, do we need to talk about this? If so, please.
Can I just say one thing, Mayor? Just as the seconder. Now that the General Manager has clarified that recommendation and that the providing of in-kind assistance as resources permit might lessen that amount of support, of course I'm in favour of the $5,000 now, whereas I was arguing before to go to 1,000 because the amount of in-kind assistance that is provided at that festival is huge. And my thought at the time, even though I read the wrong recommendation, was that perhaps we shouldn't be giving quite as much support as it's a huge event, $35 a ticket. But now the General Manager has clarified that. I'm fully in support of this motion.
Thank you very much. Councillor Simons, you wish to say something?
Oh, yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And it's probably a question, I think, probably to the General Manager. I just note that it is probably far and above the most that we contribute to a festival. We're often asked to contribute to these events that happen within our municipality. And I noticed, I think it was the last council meeting we had, we were asked to give a cash contribution to the Coles Bay Triathlon, which was amended and reduced. What is the definition between this event and perhaps even the next event on our agenda here today, Echo event? I'm just reading in the background to this that we've got it attracted, the event drew over 300 people in 2021. Well, it's a lot of people, 300, but there's other events that certainly draw a lot more than that don't receive the same assistance. So I'm just wondering how we justify $5,000 for this event and then others that would seem to be equally as important and drive as much joy for people and economic benefits as what this one does as well, yet we don't seem to support that.
General Manager.
I think Councillor Simon's question's a very valid one. It points to the fact that we need to, as a council, review both our events criteria and how we appropriate allocations to various events, as well as our small community grants. I think there needs to be work done around both of those entities to enable certainly the officers of council doing the evaluation and providing the reports to council, that they can be more definitive and easily compared, if you like, if you're comparing one event to the other. Someone made a comment earlier on that this is the Festival of Voices is a premier event in our municipality, and I think it would be hard to argue with that. But I agree with Councillor Simons. Yes, there are other what we could call premier events in our municipality, and we would be expecting to support them along the same lines. But we are going to do work to firm up on our assessment process around this, because a lot of it is subjective. It's not easy to develop a set of objective criteria when the events differ so much, from food and wine festivals to sporting events, triathlons, etc., etc. They all very different, but we believe that we can develop a better assessment process that will enable council to make these decisions a lot more easier, and make it easier for officers to provide the recommendations as well.
Thank you, General Manager. Councillor
Just
Simon.
to add to that, is we did obviously look at the history with this particular event. You probably can see in the report the last 6 or 7 years, the funding allocation that council has provided. It has gone up over the years, but that is understandable. We were mindful that despite COVID and despite this event being cancelled for 1 year like many others, we were still mindful of the fact that it couldn't just continue to increase year on year, and so we've tried to stabilise things as well.
Thank you. Councillor Simons, you wish to say something further?
Yeah, I was just going to ask how, if that's the case and we're developing these new protocols and what have you, how did we the officers come to the conclusion that this event would draw $5,000 of cash, when I think the most I've seen given to other events is around a $1,500 mark? It just seems to be a huge difference for an event that draws 300 people.
As I said, Councillor Simons, it is, some of the analysis was based on the history and what's been provided in previous years. Now, I'm not saying that is set in concrete. It's not at all, but it certainly was taken into consideration. But I would expect other events, and I can think of at least one or two in Bicheno, for example, that council would deem to be premier events in our municipality. And I think we just need to get to a point where those premier events are recognised as such and are provided with as much in the way of equitable support as we can.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, General Manager. Well, my personal view is how many people benefit and what is the cost to provide that benefit. That's one of the fundamental things we should look at. But I'll now put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Against? Carried unanimously. Now the next item is the one that 8.4 we got a little bit tangled with.
Yes.
East
One
Coast
person
Harvest
did.
Odyssey. Oh, well, it's easy to get caught up in these things.
Particularly when you have a small
pages-
screen.
Yes, that's right. That's why I use paper, because I'm likely to lose the whole lot on the screen. Can I have a motion, please?
Yes, Councillor Breeny would like to put the motion.
Thank you.
Mayor. I move
Please,
one,
Councillor Green.
that council provides bins for the event and an increase in servicing of public amenities in the area over the festival period, and that council provides a grant of $2,000 from the event budget to the festival's organising body towards festival expenses.
Is there a seconder? Thank you,
That's right.
Councillor Churchill. Councillor Bruni, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We've been speaking in relation to the last issue as to the benefit and the balance of funding. One of the things that is really important, I think, in our municipality is to support this type of festival and try to ensure that eventually, like other festivals that do occur, for example, Food and Wine, various other events, the Bicheno, the Coles Bay Half, etc., become regular events that hopefully one day we might be able to, in our policy, ensure that they become self-funded or at least more self-sufficient than having to come to council begging for assistance, even if that assistance might be minor as far as we might be concerned from a grant of event budgets of $1,000 or something like that. If we can ensure that whatever the event is, whether it's a festival event that's run privately and tickets are expensive, that sort of thing, I understand that that can be an issue. But I also believe that any festival in our municipality does bring a degree of notification, of notice, and of notoriety, if you like, to the municipality that is beneficial to businesses, etc., and to our image. And Lord knows we need to improve our image. I believe that the $1,000 grant may have been in line with things like community small grants, etc. But I do believe that some greater degree of assistance for this is well worth the effort and well worth us considering. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the seconder wish to speak?
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Churchill.
If I may, I just in support of this event, I've got to some councillors will remember when the main organiser of this event came and approached us a number of years ago when the event was first conceived. And at that point in time, council was unable to assist at all. Now, the organisers then have gone out on their own. They've taken the initiative and said, well, okay, we didn't get help there, but that doesn't stop us doing it. And I admire them for persisting and following through. And they obviously managed to get this far. And the event is now, I think, going into its third year, I think. And if we can see a way of supporting it now, I think we're in a position to do it. And also remembering that out of our events allocation for the year, we have not allocated a very big percentage of that allocation. Not that that's justification for spending the money, but I think it's worth noting that we can probably do that this year. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers for or against? Councillor Simons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, look, I'll be supporting Councillor Bruni's motion, but I think we're setting a very confusing precedent for any event organisers that might wish to apply for anything within our municipality. And I'd just hark back to the last meeting where we reduced the Coles Bay Triathlon's funding on a whim. Perhaps it's personal preference. Perhaps councillors are more interested in the artistic side of festivals and events and not the sporting side of events. But this really needs to be sorted out very, very soon, because it's
Councillor Simons, thank you very much. I concur with that view. Does anyone else wish to speak? I put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Against? I declare the motion carried unanimously, and council officers will take note of Councillor Simons' apt comments. The next item is 8.5, Audit Panel Committee meeting minutes. Can I have a motion? Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move that council receives and notes the attached minutes of Glamorgan Spring Bay Council Audit Panel meeting held on the 15th of February 2022.
Councillor Breeny, seconds.
Thank you, Councillor Breeny. Councillor Arnold, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor. It's self-explanatory.
Councillor Breeny, do you want to say anything?
No, thank you. It's self-explanatory. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to say anything? I put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Aye. Against? Carried unanimously. The next item is Swansea wastewater system fees. There's a report from Mr. Porch. Can I have a motion? It's Councillor Woods, was that a moving of a motion?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're going a bit slowly. Councillor Churchill.
Yes, I'll put the motion. I move that council provides notice to landowners connected to the Sonic wastewater treatment plant, advising of the separate rate under section 100 of the Local Government Act 1993, being considered to apply in the 2022-23 financial year budget process, with advice of the order of cost of that rate to property owners. And 2, that council enter into an agreement for discharge and use of recycled water with Kuralina Proprietary Limited and Freycinet Golf Club Incorporated.
Is there a seconder?
Councillor Breeny, seconds.
Councillor Breeny, thank you. It's the most important report, and it involves a new section of the Act that we haven't used, that I'm aware of recent times. Does anyone wish to speak for or against the motion?
I'll speak to the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I think we've learned a lot through this whole process. I think we've now recognised that perhaps there was a revenue source that we should have been using over a period of time to better allow us to afford and maintain this facility. So I guess it's some relief to me to at least to know that moving forward from here, while we don't extend the capacity of this facility beyond its capability, then we at least are entitled to gain some revenue from this. I'm well aware that that those people affected by it are probably not going to be happy with it. However, I think if they look at it from a positive point of view, they've had a number of years where the community generally has supported and I guess in a sense subsidised their wastewater for the 93 properties, I think it is, that are now connected to it. And I hope that they recognise that as a positive that they've had out of it for varying numbers of years, depending on how long they've lived there, I guess. But the community has supported that and funded that for some time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to make any comment?
Yes, thank you,
Well, I've
Mayor.
got one comment to make. I'm sorry, Councillor Breeny.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, my initial consideration of this point in the agenda was to look at what has happened in the past, and I think that was a mistake. I need to be able, from my point of view, to address the issue as it stands at the moment. The failure of TasWater to accept this wastewater scheme and to leave it with council is a most unfortunate situation. And the fact that council in the past managed to put ourselves in this situation is not the fault of what's happened in the past. It was just one of those issues that a developer brought forward, and it looked like a good idea at the time. It's shown that it's not a good idea, and hopefully that situation won't be repeated. But the current thinking of mine is that it's a user pay situation. Council, the ratepayers of the whole municipality have been subsidising to the extent of, I think it was $50,000 plus dollars for ongoing annual repairs and maintenance, and it's dwindling as it is. I think the fact that we're lumbering people, 93 odd or whatever the number of properties is, with an additional impost on what was last year's rate increase is unfortunate. However, I believe that, as I said, the user pay situation clicks in here. It has to be properly maintained, and the only way that council can maintain that is ensuring that the costs are reimbursed somehow or other, and I don't see it coming from anyone other than those users. I just hope that for us, that the impost on the ratepayers and the people who are going to be hit with this extra cost is well justified, well explained, and hopefully defendable when they come to us with swords drawn. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brenny. Councillor Simons.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, can I perhaps ask Mr. Woodward a question? Mr. Woodard a question on the, or perhaps even Mr. Porch, the cost of $50,000 to be directed to the 94 property users. Am I correct in assuming that equates to about a $530 odd levy each year that those users will pay?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct. On the attachments, you'll find that there is a summary provided with a breakdown of the, if you like, an asset management plan, very simple, for the facility, the operating costs, etc., and that provides for that the properties. Now, this is, again, council need to make determinations about this and will make determinations about this if it's passed through the budget process as to the level of fee that will be applied, whether that's applied to the same way to developed properties as undeveloped properties, because some of them won't have houses on them, some do. So there are still determinations to be made about this, but assuming that every property will levy the same, you'd be looking at around about, you know, the estimation there is about $551 per property.
Thank you, Mr. Port. Any other comments? But I'd like to say something. If in fact Taswater took over this operation, as one would think was part of its obligation, it would levy a water rate charge, and that would cost those that have to pay this levy. I put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried unanimously. The next item is 8.7 RSL request for road closure. Can I have a recommendation or a motion? Thank you, Councillor Woods.
So I'll move that council approves and facilitates the road closure of Vickery Street Tribunna between Melbourne Street and the RSL club rooms between 10:30 and 11:15 on Monday, the 25th of April 2022, to facilitate the Tribunna RSL club's Anzac Day March, and that council advertises the road closure in accordance with the policy.
Is there a seconder?
Councillor
Councillor Browning, thank you. Do you wish to speak to the motion, Deputy Mayor Woods, or do you think that there'll be no dissension and need?
No need to speak to the motion, Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak one way or the other? I put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Against? Carried unanimously. The next item is the Swansea Heliport proposal 8.8. Can I have a motion?
Councillor Breeny will move it.
Thank you, Councillor Breeny.
I move that council endorse the proposal to develop land within planning and statutory confinements and in conjunction with other emergency management stakeholder agencies at 76 Maria Street, Swansea, for emergency preparedness and response purposes, that being the development of helicopter staging infrastructure through grant funding and inter-agency cooperation.
Seconded, Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Councillor Arnold. Councillor Breeny, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I don't believe there's any need, Mayor. The report makes it very clear how important something like this is for the safety of the community. It's a no-brainer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Arnold.
I think Councillor Breeny has said it like it is, but I think also the development of this at Swansea will serve our whole municipal area well. So.
Thank you. I'm going to put the motion. All those in. I'm sorry,
Councillor Browning.
Through the mayor to Mr. Porsche, I think the flooding is that because it floods there? So is it going to be elevated? The helipad. Just a question, really.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and a good question too, Councillor Browning. Yeah, look, certainly we're aware that there's a creek runs through there. There's got to be works around that. Should the planning arrangements allow us to develop that to and the other agencies to the extent that is desirable for emergency management response, that will have sufficient design to raise the hard infrastructure, road, hard stand, etc., to a level that's appropriate.
And through you
Thank
again.
you, Mr. Ford. Councillor Browning.
That hopefully that's not going to impact on more flooding that's going to be forced through to come back and maybe flood the SES building, or I guess that'll all be planned, hopefully.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, have taken into account through the process.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Churchill.
Yeah, just by way of a question, and this is, nothing negative about the proposal, because I think this is something we really need and it's very valuable to the community. But just in the report, it says under budget implications, there are no budget implications for council. Now, presumably it will become a council asset. If so, maintenance and depreciation would become a cost. Why does that not appear in that report as under budget implications, if I'm correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the proposal is to fund the activity and the works associated with it from grants. So the expectation is that through the interagency support with Tas Fire, with Tas Ambulance, that funds for renewal of the infrastructure, which is the cost you're alluding to, will be able to be managed from those interagency operations.
Thank you, Mr. Porcher. You would have the answer.
Are there any other questions or comments? If that's the case, I put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried unanimously. The next item is Orford Foreshore Master Plan. Can I have a motion, please?
Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Councillor Arnold.
Thank you. I'll move that Council 1 incorporate the feedback from Parks and Wildlife Services and endorse the release of the draft Orford Foreshore Master Plan (Master Plan) for public exhibition and comment for approximately 4 weeks. 2, that the recommended final draft master plan would consider community feedback provided during public engagement and would be presented to council at a future meeting.
Councillor Arnold, the recommendation in the report didn't quite have the same preface
No.
you did. You gave your motion.
Absolutely, but Mayor, there was an email this morning which effectively amended the recommendation
Right.
to what I have just
I
put.
don't care it. I just was concerned that our executive officer, Jasmine Murray, could get the wording down correctly. From what you said, that appears to be the case. Is there a seconder?
I'll
Yeah,
second.
Councillor Robinson will second that.
Through you,
Oh,
Mr.
thank
Mayor,
you,
can I
Councillor Robinson.
through you, Mr. Mayor, before we just move
Yeah.
on, so so it's been moved and seconded. So councillors would be aware of the amendments and feedback from Parks and Wildlife. Okay, so we just need to table that formally as part of this this meeting. And obviously that would be incorporated into the document that's going to go out for the public consultation.
Could you read over, please,
So-
General Manager, the first part of the motion?
So the new recommendation, so not the recommendation that appeared in your original agenda, the new recommendation as just read by Councillor Arnold, is that council incorporate the feedback from Parks and Wildlife Services and endorse the release of the draft Orford Foreshore Master Plan for public exhibition and comment for approximately 4 weeks. The second part of that motion, note
That's right. I've got it. Thank you.
Note that the recommended
Councillor
final
Arnold.
draft will consider community feedback provided during public engagement and would be presented to council at a future meeting.
Councillor Arnold, in your motion, could you put in paragraph 1, when it refers to Parks recommendation, that tabled or filed herewith, so we can just have a source where to find the Parks input?
So, Mary, you're suggesting that perhaps incorporate the tabled feedback, because the General Manager has just tabled it, albeit after I put the motion. So perhaps incorporate the tabled feedback from Parks or tabled by the General Manager feedback.
Yes,
from Parks and Wildlife.
that would be ideal.
I'm happy to do that so that it identifies what feedback we're talking about. Yes, I don't have a problem with that.
Thank you very much. And as a seconder, Councillor Robinson, you agree with that?
Yep, I'm happy with that incorporation.
Now, is there any discussion on this motion? If that's the case, I put the motion. I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor Woods.
Thank you. I note today when we had our request for a question without notice from Miss Rosemary Wood, that she signed it as a member of the Section 24 community. I can't get it on in front of me at the moment because, and I have asked this before, and my memory does not serve me very well at all. That committee has been disbanded, hasn't it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct, Deputy Mayor Woods. I'm not sure. I did note in Mrs. Woods' correspondence that she signed off as a member of the Prosser River Advisory Group.
Yes. Yeah.
But that group no longer exists.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions or queries?
No, the only comment I'd make, sorry, Mr. Mayor, the only comment I'd make as the mover of the motion is that I'm pleased to see us actually get to this point.
And Mayor, through you to
Arnold.
Councillor Robinson,
Yes.
I'd concur with what Councillor Arnold says. It's been a long-winded process, and it's great to see that we've got to this point where we're going to hopefully have people working together.
Thank you.
Okay.
I put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Say aye. Against? Carried unanimously. Now, the next item, 8.10, South East Region Jobs Hub Incorporated Association Rules. Can I have a motion, please?
Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Councillor Arnold.
I'll move that council resolve to 1, endorse the establishment of the South East Region Jobs Hubs Association. 2, adopt the draft rules as amended and draft strategic plan. And 3, authorise the General Manager or SERDA delegate to execute as necessary.
Is there a seconder?
Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Woods. Now, does this warrant discussion, or are we happy the motion be put? I put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Against? Carried unanimously. Now, that comes to item 9. There are no notices of motion. Then comes item 11. Questions
10.
from councillor.
Item
Oh,
10.
sorry.
10.
Item 10. Yes.
Petitions.
Yes, I can't count. Item 10. No petitions.
There's
The
no
only
petition.
petition we've
There's
got,
no
the ones in
petition.
Parliament. Now, item 10. Question from councillor. This is a question without notice by councillors taken on notice 22nd of February 2022. It's from Deputy Mayor Woods, a matter that is of great concern to all of us, especially the young children in the Orford area. This question has been circulated with the notice of the minutes, sorry, the agenda for the meeting. And there has been a response from the General Manager. Deputy Mayor Woods, do you wish to make any comment or say anything about your...
Yes, please.
Thank you. Please say it.
To say that I am disappointed is an understatement in the response that we got from the Department of State Growth. And Miss Murray, I don't think I need to send anything through to you because it's not a question. I'm just making a statement with the permission of council. They've missed the point that I've been trying to make completely. That they're talking about cars going onto the footpath. It's not about that. It's about people falling onto the road. You know, I did get some correspondence when I brought this up last month, and it dates back to 2009, and it was from a Graham Sturgis, who's the Minister for Infrastructure at the time. But one of the responses that they gave in this is a fence is already provided to prevent pedestrians from falling into the river. And this can be used by pedestrians to steady themselves in strong winds. Now, I've never heard anything more ridiculous in all my life. But the fact is that they are missing the point completely. You know, it is on a state road, it is on a highway, it is on a bridge, and there are significant dangers. And it's on their heads. If anyone happens to fall into the traffic, which is what I've been talking about, people falling into the traffic, you do have to get off your bike when you're passing. If there's a pedestrian, a small fence of some description along there is not going to make that much difference. And I know that the bridge is old. I know that, you know, it's a significant cost to the state, but you know, they know about this concern from this council now. And if anything, God forbid, happens to a pedestrian on that bridge, let it be on their hands. I'm just really, really disappointed. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councillor Woods. I understand your concern. If it was a pane of glass, that institution would have to upgrade to Australian standard, but it appears they're not interested in upgrading a bit of protection on a pedestrian footpath to an Australian standard.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a comment as well, please?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I totally agree with Deputy Mayor Woods. And I think the thing that annoyed me about the answer is that the state government consistently tell us that they do work to keep people safe on the roads. This response, the first paragraph of this response is absolutely disgraceful in that context, because it says it's not aware that there have been any reported crashes. Well, okay, isn't that what we're trying to avoid? And keep the people, our community people, safe. So I'm, like Councillor Woods, I'm absolutely appalled at this response. And when you consider the government's general view of trying to keep the people safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Arnold. That's a very apt comment. Now, I think that deals with 11.1, with all of the dissatisfaction we have from the state government about that matter.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, can I just make a quick comment? So the state growth author does refer in his response, his or her response does refer to a vehicle barrier. Quite correct, as Councillor Woods picked up, and vehicle barriers are substantial pieces of infrastructure that I think we all agree wouldn't fit on the footpath and still allow the free passage of cyclists and pedestrians. But I think where Councillor Woods is coming from is a simpler barrier that demarcates the edge of the footpath to the traffic. So if council is supportive, we can just clarify that again with state growth to say we are not asking for a vehicle barrier, which is the heavy galvanized barriers that you would be familiar with. We're asking for a simple railing that can demarcate the footpath to the traffic lane. Would you support us doing that?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And through you, Mayor,
Yes,
just before we finish on that one, Councillor Robinson, it would be interesting too, Councillor Woods, to see, I support what you're saying totally, which other bridges in our state on state roads have dual railings. You know, I'm sure there are some. And it'd be interesting to ask that question as well, because if there's 3 or 4 other bridges like that have dual railing where pedestrians go across, it's a good precedent that you can use.
And it could be sent as a photograph, just to remind people. Well, thank you very much for that item. There are no questions on notice, and there are no questions without notice by councillors. And now that comes to the question of the close. I declare that the meeting is closed at 3:35 p.m. on the 22nd of March, a Tuesday. Thank you all for your attendance. The General Manager wishes to raise something once the public broadcasting of this meeting ceases. Thank you very much.